Welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry, and today I spent 5 hours making tiny fluffy bunny hands for a super secret stop motion project. This week I'm chatting with Wian van Bergen, art director and co-founder of South African animation studio, Lucan. In our chat, you'll learn about Isaura, their first IP about a young girl on a mission to save the sea turtles. And what makes this series really unique behind the scenes is that Wian designed their own real-time pipeline using Unreal Engine, something I haven't heard of before, and it's actually incredible since it allows them to see what the final product will look like as they're working on it. Wian is actually going to talk a lot about how he's integrating the latest tech into his projects, plus he's going to get into his own personal journey of starting a special effects projection side hustle, which led to co-founding Lucan in the first place, which has now serviced some of the biggest brands in the world, including Nike, Coca-Cola, and Mustang. But first, this episode is sponsored by the awesome team at startastudio.com. Starta Studio is a new online school focused on the business side of animation. They have both free and paid courses, an online community, and downloads to help you succeed in your animation career and build your own cool, creative, and viable animation studio. You can use the unique discount code AIP as an animation industry podcast in the checkout to save 20% on their popular Pro Studio Startup course. So whether you're looking to up your freelance game or plan and launch your own animation company, check out startastudio.com, and all the details are in the description of this chat, so please check them out. Now let's jump into the chat. Hi, Wian. Thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you?
Hey, Terry. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Great. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Lucan, your studio, and Isaura, the series that you have under development, and also what the industry is like in South Africa, because I've never spoken to anybody from South Africa before. So
I've actually, you haven't been to South Africa? Do you know anyone that's in Cape Town? Like, that's where we're based, in Cape Town.
Nice. No, I've never been, and I've never spoken to anybody from there either. So this is a first for me. So maybe we can start by just giving an overview of what's. So you have an animation studio, obviously, but how big is the industry in Cape Town or South Africa in general?
I mean, it's quite a healthy industry, I can say that. We've got amazing talent here. And I guess the rest of the world knows that because they're shopping with dollars, and our currency is quite weak compared to that. So they're getting amazing talent for not a lot, I would say sometimes. We've got incredible studios here, anything from like feature animation films to VFX houses, a lot of like smaller studios that work on TV commercials. And I must say, I feel like the amount of work available is a lot. It's definitely a healthy industry at the moment. It seems like.
Nice. Is it like there are a lot of schools in animation set up to kind of feed the industry there, or do you work with a lot of people who come there specifically for it?
Sure. To be honest, I don't really want to step on toes, but I mean, there are one or two schools that's decent, but I feel that's an area where there's definitely room for improvement if you compare it to the rest of the world, just in the States or in Europe. I feel like the curriculums they offer sometimes feel a bit old school still, teaching the same things, not expanding, I feel there's room for improvement, but I mean, as a starting point, it's definitely enough. I feel like a lot of the guys, and I mean like any industry, I guess, you learn a lot when you're on the job, or most of the time you learn when you're on the job, so.
Nice, yeah. And I'm just curious, there's like 3D, 2D, maybe some stop motion.
Yeah, like definitely 3D. So I studied, we can chat about that now, where I started and all of that. But the school, there's definitely a couple of 3D schools around. 2D, I'm not too familiar actually. Like there are some guys that teach After Effects and Toon Boom and that kind of stuff, but it's not like Goblins or anything like that. So there's definitely a mix. I feel like compositing and that kind of thing and art direction is not really something that you can find here. But I mean, there's so many online courses that I feel like if I had to do it over again, I would probably, just do everything online.
Yeah. Well, let's chat about what you would have done over again. What did you originally do to get into this?
Yeah, sure. So, where do we start? So I guess, like high school. I'm going to take you a long way around. So just reel me back if I stray too far.
Okay. I'll sit back here.
Yeah. So in high school, I guess you can say I was a bit of a jock. I was very into like sports and hanging out with friends and goofing around. But definitely had like an artistic side, that I kind of kept to myself. And because none of my mates really cared about anything artistic, So I remember after school, I would spend hours and hours just like drawing and sketching and doing charcoal work and graphite. So it's something that I really loved. Um, and then when it came time to decide what I'm going to do after school, like what I'm going to study, I thought, yeah, well, maybe like architecture. That's something I can use my draftsman skills there. Didn't give it a lot of thought, which is quite scary because it takes about 7 years to become an architect. So yeah, so during that time, I remember I went to the cinema and I watched Finding Nemo, and I was like absolutely blown away. Like something about that film just captured me, and I knew that like that's something I want to be a part of, or just a team of like making that. So after that, I went to my mom. I was like, "Listen, please find a place in South Africa where you can study animation." And I wasn't even sure if something like that existed. And luckily, there was a place that I mentioned earlier in Cape Town. They offer like a 3-year animation course. So yeah, I signed up, and after finishing school, I immediately started, and yeah, I really loved it. But an interesting thing is that I realized that I actually didn't enjoy making characters move, like the animation part of things. I really enjoyed making a beautiful image. So yeah, I feel like that's also like something that we didn't get the opportunity to explore further in the course. Like we kind of were not forced, but like encouraged to like pursue physical animation, making stuff move. I mean, I do find it fascinating, like the practice. It's just not something that appealed to me that much.
When you say a beautiful picture, do you mean like concept artwork and character design and things like that?
I would say more like an art direction side. So like
Yeah.
what makes a beautiful image, like good composition, good value structure, color, lighting, that kind of stuff. I mean, back then I didn't really know all of these terms or anything, but I just knew what looked good and what didn't. So I guess that's always been something that I really enjoyed doing is crafting an image. And then after school, after studying there, I started working at this small little production house, and they mainly focus on Nigerian TV commercials. And I don't know if any of your listeners have actually worked on a Nigerian TV commercial, but you would know that the ideas are huge and the timeline is very short. So I was definitely in the deep end there. Learned so much. I was actually the only 3D guy there. So I remember my boss would just chuck a brief on my desk and say, "Off you go, you've got a week." I had to like learn everything from scratch, like like liquid sims and like particles and lighting and comping, which was great for someone learning. That's what I said. You learn a lot on the job. So I also learned what I didn't like, which I feel is super valuable.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I started hustling a couple of jobs. Freelance work. I mean, when you're young, you don't need to sleep, right? You can just work through the night. And yeah, I actually started getting quite busy with freelance work. And my housemate at the time, Wagner, he's also my business partner at Lucan. Him and I started tackling jobs together. And I remember telling my boss, "Okay, cool, I've got a dentist appointment." And then we would rush off to the house and set up like a fake office with like fake desks and like computer screens that are not even plugged in. And yeah, then and we bought like a fancy coffee machine, and then we got the clients over, and then had like a little meeting, and then straight back to work.
Wait, so you brought clients over to your apartment?
Yeah, like our
And
fake
it
working
off as
station.
like, this is our studio.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't clue in at all.
I mean, yeah, maybe the client knew it was like a fake setup, but I think they just kept quiet. I don't know. But I mean, we got so much. I mean, my boss must think I had the worst teeth because I had to go to the dentist like every month.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so what kind of, you said freelance, and when I think freelance, I'm thinking like somebody's commissioning you to draw their sister a Christmas gift, but these sound like legit commercial ideas.
Yeah, so maybe freelance is like the wrong term, but what we actually did a lot of was projection mapping. I don't know if you've seen any projection mapping work before.
Just maybe you can just kind of give the gist of it.
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's using massive projectors, sometimes the size of a small car, or even a series of them, and we would project onto like buildings or cars or any object. I'm not sure if you've seen like sometimes, you know, that street art, and if you stand on a certain perspective, you get that illusion of depth. But when you move, like the image is completely distorted and that illusion is broken. So we would use that principle and project onto buildings with obviously light. And you can get this amazing illusion of depth and perspective from one angle, but when you move around, obviously that's broken. And not to blow my own horn, but I think we did some of the best projection mapping work at the time in South Africa, because we had this film and TV commercial background. And a lot of the guys at the time, they, you know, they were hobbyists, and they would map a building and then, you know, just throw like a Windows screensaver kind of thing onto the building, just pretty lights and stuff. So we took it quite serious. So we did quite a bit of jobs.
So
And
I'm curious, how do you go from I'm new at a studio, I'm the only 3D guy, to being known for 3D projection mapping?
yeah, I mean, that timeline, that's about like a 3-year timeline that I kind of compressed there. But like I say, like we just did it so well, and like people really recognize like the kind of work that we do. It's
You had experience in this before because of like your architecture or like your day job? Like, how did you suddenly be like, now I'm a projection guy?
Yeah, so obviously we've got the experience of like creating like 3D stuff for like visual effects for the TV commercials we did. And like the projection mapping side of things was just like late nights research and like figuring stuff out and like building like little boxes with polystyrene and doing little tests. And it was such a fun time actually, because we figured all this stuff out, and then we made like a little proof of concept video, and we sent that to like all the event companies, and then yeah, people just started like contacting us for work.
Well, you already had a very entrepreneurial kind of spirit from the get-go.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think both my parents are like business people, so I think I got that from them.
Okay, so how did you go from this? You know, you had your day job, you had a lot of dentist appointments, you're doing this thing on the side with projection mapping. How did you end up co-founding I guess a large studio that is now producing a series, has produced a bunch of commercial work, etc.? Like that seems
yeah. So during that time when we did all the mapping stuff, one of our big clients, he owns a events company. He called us in and said, listen, you guys have something special. You know, why don't I invest in you guys? Like we start our own little company, quit your jobs, and then we can, you know, I can probably float you guys for the beginning, because we're going into season. We'll get a lot of jobs, and I can definitely give you all the jobs that we get, and we start growing the company from there. And we were like, dude, that is awesome. That's the best news ever. Like next day, handed in our resignations. You know, we're still young, so like, what's the worst that can happen, actually? And then yeah, we like classic bootstrap story, I guess. We started like in a very small, dingy little office, and started growing the team. And that was about like 9 years ago. So we definitely grew a bit from there and like pivoted with the type of work we do. But it's always nice to think back to those days.
nice. So this is the same company now,
Yeah.
Lucan. Okay. So let's chat about some of your current projects there. Obviously, specifically one current project of topic.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll chat about Isaura. That's our baby. But the type of work we do, we still do a lot of TV commercial kind of work. But the last couple of years, and it's something that we really enjoy, is we're doing a lot more long format stuff like brand films and you know, like trailer development, IP development, that kind of stuff, which gives you a lot of creative freedom, I would say, and that's what we like to do. And the type of projects, not all our projects, but our favorite projects are usually the ones with a cause, which is interesting. So we've done work with the United Nations for women abuse. One of our clients that we've been working with for the last like 2-3 years is they do video for stroke prevention. So that's kind of a big cause for us. Like we create content that make people aware of the symptoms of stroke. So that's been within the studio for such a long time. And the campaign's name is FAST. It's like the acronym for, you know, the symptoms you can see. So F is for your face starts drooping, A, if your arm starts drooping, S, if your speech becomes incoherent, and T means for like the faster you act, a better chance of survival, so for time. So yeah, we've had the fast characters. You can check it out on our website. They've been with us for the last 3 years, so, and hopefully for the next 3 years.
Yeah, they're like these cool superhero kids and grandpas.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how big is the team now? I mean, you said you've got the bootstrap thing going, and now it's been 9 years later, right?
Yeah, so we're a small studio actually. We're about 12 people, and I don't think we ever really want to grow too large. The reason is, for example, we don't have a specific style. You know, like people don't come to us for a style. They come to us with a problem, and we solve that problem with whatever we need to. For example, with Isaura, that's not something we've really done before. But the best part about Isaura for me was like we got to cherry pick like artists from around the world to work with us, and we kind of conceptualized everything as we went along. So we kind of scale with the requirements of the project.
I'm surprised there's only 12 people because, you know, I've watched the Isaura trailer and it looks like there would be a lot more people behind it. Like it's got this amazing, beautiful background and this 2D animation on top and everything. So I'm impressed. How do you, I don't know if you can share this, but like, how do you go about, did somebody come to you and commission you to make this, or did you pitch this idea yourself?
So Isaura started as a conservation project on an island off the coast of Mozambique. Okay. So Mozambique is in southern Africa. It's bordered by the Indian Ocean. It's a very remote island called Fire Island, and specifically it's a turtle conservation project. And they actually reached out to us, being an animation studio, with this idea that we thought was so cool. So basically what they wanted to do was, they want to get the story of turtle conservation to the most remote areas of Mozambique. So what they planned was to rig these massive overlander trucks, rig them with screens, drive to these remote areas, set up over a weekend, and then educate youngsters about the importance of turtle conservation and ocean conservation by using these animations as a tool.
That's a really cool idea. I can't see
anybody I'll
to watch them. So and then it's done through like narrative story and like magic and like folklore and stuff too, right?
Pardon?
And the story is told through like it's a narrative film.
Yeah.
Or a series.
Yeah.
Told through like folklore.
So when we started, we took the project on. Andrew's also a partner in Lucan, and him and Clayton Koski, they are co-creators of the show. They started writing and developing the story, and the story just became so epic and the idea just so big. We soon realized that we can't isolate this just to this once-off event for select few people. We have to make like a full-on series about this. So we got other writers on board, and we ended up writing 13 episodes of 22 minutes each. We even developed like a whole cast of other characters tackling other conservation issues like rhino poaching in Tanzania and deforestation and the effects it has on chimpanzees. So it just grew and grew, and then we made this trailer as a pitching tool, I guess, and it got some attention around the world and some very positive feedback. And I'm very excited about where things are at the moment with the show.
So what are next steps at this point?
Funding, the money. Yeah, so we kind of in sourcing funding. We have
and the turtle conservation project is totally 100% on with this idea and everything. They're like, we're good.
Yeah, no, that's still going. I mean,
finding more funding and everything like that.
No, the turtle conservation project is still going. It's got a lot of attention as well. It just that also grew like a wildfire. So we spoke to most of the prominent like streaming services, some private investors. We do have a very prominent director that's quite interested, and we are also considering maybe doing indie funding with our network that we have. So yeah, it's in a very exciting space. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but the point is we just really want to make this with the right partners.
Nice. You mentioned that you reached out to a number of artists that you wanted to work with and kind of cherry picked. Like, how did you do that? You just went out into Instagram and LinkedIn and whatever, or do you have a good network of artists? Like, how does somebody who really wants to work on something like this for your studio or a different studio get to work on something like this?
Yeah, so specifically for Isaura, we can definitely chat about like the process and the art direction side of things. But when we decided on what the style is for the show, I just reached out. Andrew, he handled more the character side of things, so he just reached out on a lot of people that we found on ArtStation that kind of suited the style that we want. And I did the same on ArtStation, just for backgrounds. And we picked a bunch of people, had like just chats with them, Zoom calls, I guess. That was even before the days of COVID, when remote working was like not even a big thing in our studio. So we had like all these interviews, a lot of Russian dudes, such awesome people to work with. Yeah, and then we just kind of picked the people that we felt like made a good fit, to the style that we wanted.
Man, I haven't even heard of, I mean, I know ArtStation, I've been all over it, but I thought it was like kind of this thing that's going kind of trending downwards versus other social medias like Instagram kind of taking off. So that's good to hear that you go on ArtStation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, yeah, we definitely find a lot of people on ArtStation. Obviously on Instagram, I don't know if it's a thing, but as soon as a person starts reaching like a certain amount of followers on Instagram, I think their rates just shoot up dramatically. So yeah. Instagram is always a tough one to find the right people, like we've experienced the last couple of years.
Plus it's hard to get in touch with people after they reach like 20 followers, because they just have so many DMs.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Do you want to talk about your involvement in the art direction and kind of the unique styles that you put together for this? Because it's visually very compelling. And
yeah, sure, we can definitely chat about that. So we definitely took a very interesting approach with Isaura. I can just tell a little bit of take a little bit of a loop. So we went to the Ottawa Animation Festival. I don't know if you've been there. You're based in Canada, right?
I haven't been. I've been online this past Ottawa Animation Festival because it's COVID.
Yeah. So we went and then we met this lady, incredible person, Archida. She owns a company, or she's part of a company, ED Films. It was by chance, like literally like at a lunch, like a networking lunch, and she happens to sit next to me. She showed us their work, and I was also blown away. It was just like, I'm more of a 3D guy, but I appreciate good 2D so much. And she showed me their latest project. It was giant bear, and it's just this beautiful 2D aesthetic. And we started chatting, and she started talking about what they do at their studio, and they also develop a lot of plugins for Maya and for After Effects and Photoshop. And she showed me this one where you can just, by the click of a button, export stuff from Photoshop to Maya and get all your artwork on cards with transparency, set up so you can like create depth and parallax in Maya by clicking a couple of buttons. And I was just like, whoa, that sparked an idea. So, started chatting to Andrew and say, listen, instead of using the traditional approach, which we might have done with a 2D project, is like, in After Effects, you have your cards of your artwork and you arrange it in space in Z-depth. Let's do it in Maya, and then we can take it a step further and actually project the artwork, or we lay out the cards in Maya, and then the hero objects or the foreground objects we can actually project onto 3D models that we kind of build out as volumes, so we get that extra level of parallax when the camera moves. So that's where it started. And then the next year, Isaura then went to the back burner for a bit because we had a lot of other projects we were working on. And then the next year, Cape Town actually hosted the animation festival. And guess who was a speaker at the festival? It was Akira. And then she presented one of their latest projects. I think that was called 3 Trees. And also beautiful, beautiful 2D aesthetic, just beautiful lighting, handmade aesthetic. But the part that caught me was they made it in Unreal Engine. So that's where the penny dropped. Okay, cool. This is how we're going to do it. So basically, we started chatting to them. They helped us so much, just guiding us to like the workflow and who to chat to. Then we found a company in South Africa, probably like the smartest dudes I've ever met, like technical director guys. They built custom tools for us to get our art. Basically, so it's like an idiot like me can even do it myself, like get the artwork from like Photoshop to Maya, and then set it up in Maya, and then a click of a button, get everything into Unreal, shaders being set up, all of that. So they built all these tools for us, which I thought was like just such an incredible thing.
That is really exciting. I mean, I can't think of like when you think of your typical animation studio, you know, they either do 2D or they do 3D or separated. They don't have this completely integrated project where they're using Unreal Engine and Maya and Photoshop and all these things in between. That sounds really fun.
Yeah,
actually.
that's what I said earlier. It's cool to be like quite a smaller studio, then you can kind of do little things like this. But yeah, then we started. So actually a part of the reason why we wanted to do it in Unreal as well, it's not just because it's cool, but it is amazing. But so for example, if we've got to make an episode of 22 minutes with a small team like ours, we need to be able to do that. So the idea would be to like build all these assets, you know, like 2D assets. Like for example, if we're creating a jungle scene, a library of like palm trees and rocks and like textures or whatever. And in Unreal is so incredible. It's real-time feedback. You can literally build like a whole environment, basically paint all these like assets, like Sims, almost like, you remember that game, The Sims?
Yeah,
you can basically paint and create this world with all your assets. Everything is real-time. You can actually, what we also did for Isaura is we use an iPad as a camera to capture the handheld data and then port that back into Unreal. So you can also move stuff around. Director can have real-time feedback. So that's a big reason why we also followed the Unreal route. And a cherry on the cake was that Unreal actually gave us a mega grant when they heard about the project. So,
oh wow, nice. Yeah. So say I'm working in a 3D studio right now. What I'll typically do is like block everything in and have it all and do all the animation, everything unrendered, and then send it to rendering. But you're saying with Unreal, you don't have to do any of that. It's just
nail on the head. Exactly. Like, I'm sure you know how painful rendering sometimes is. We all know that. So yeah, the beauty of Unreal is just it's real time, and you can get very amazing results for that.
Nice. Do you want to talk more about Isaura and where that's going? Because I also want to know kind of in general what the direction of your studio is now that it's, you know, you're 9 years in, you're working on a series right now. Like, what is that ultimate goal that you're trying to reach for?
Yeah, sure. I guess the last thing about Isaura, like I was more involved in the art direction of things. So with Isaura's art direction, Andrew and myself, we actually did a recce to Mozambique. So we went to the fishing village where the story is set. And I mean, that is a remote part in Mozambique. So we drove for like hours and hours to get to this village. And we took thousands and thousands and thousands of photos just to get a very authentic look. Like that was our main objective with this, is to get an authentic look, something that looks like Mozambique, which is quite unique in its own way, because Mozambique has got a tropical climate. So the textures are so beautiful and raw, and like it's water damage and moss, and they went through a civil war. So there's a lot of like broken structures. So we really tried to capture that in also the trailer by using, that's why the backgrounds, we decided to go with a very painterly look, you know, like one thing that I remember Patrick O'Keefe, the guy who art directed Into the Spider-Verse, they didn't use lens effects like depth of field to blur the background to draw your attention, or like lens flares, that kind of stuff. Everything is true to like a comic book, what you can achieve with a comic book art. So we wanted to do the same with Isaura, you know, go for like a very traditional oil painted look. So if you want to do depth of field, you kind of have to paint the edges softer and lower the contrast to make sure you can focus on the focal point, and get those beautiful textures that we saw in Mozambique. And a very interesting thing that we picked up while we were going from like the city of Maputo, which is like the capital, is the color palettes. So there were a lot of reds, because Coca-Cola is a huge sponsor there. Yellows, MTN is their main cell phone brand. They've got a yellow. Then you've got the black, and that's like their main beer brand, all the signage there. And obviously a lot of greens of the foliage and stuff. But then as we moved into the more remote areas, the more rural areas, the color palettes became way more earth tones and much more subtle. And I remember there's like the boats, the dhows that they use for fishing, like most of them were painted with this blue color. So we've got this earth tones and the blues, and yeah, those little things are the things that we kind of really wanted to integrate into the artwork to give that authentic look.
You said you took thousands of pictures. Are there any like kind of Easter eggs you put into the show so far of very specific things that you thought were cool or interesting when you were there?
Like, I'm trying to think now. It was actually quite a while ago that we made it. Maybe, I don't know. Actually, I actually don't know. It would have been cool though.
Well, it's really insightful for me to learn all this from behind the scenes, because just watching it, it's like this overwhelming, beautiful trailer for this really cool show, and then you learn all the history, all that went into it, and it makes it even more rich. So let's chat about Lucan overall. Like, what is that? So you started this off because somebody was like, "Hey, let's invest in you because you have something cool," and now suddenly 9 years later, you're creating this big project. You've got a lot of commercial things on your belt. Like, what is the goal that you want with your studio?
Yeah, so I think the way forward at the moment, we're just really enjoying working on this, the more IP development side of things, creating like trailers, more long format side of things, and brand films. Like, I guess any studio wants that creative control, having a voice. It just not always, but sometimes it feels working with agencies, you kind of you don't always get to make things the way you were hoping to. So with this kind of work we're doing now, is like we've got so much creative control, and we get to experiment. Like using Unreal, for example. Like we made that call and we did it. So I guess that's kind of the goal, is to find more work like that and continue doing that, and then obviously develop, Isaura, actually make Isaura, and even more kids series along the way.
Nice. What about for you personally? Like, you love the art direction side of things, and I'm assuming you also have to be heavily involved in the business side of things too now. But what is your goal for yourself through all of this?
Yeah, so I still have that fire of fine art and painting and drawing. So the last 2 years, I really started focusing on a lot of oil painting, traditional oil painting. So yeah, I guess I can see myself when I'm an old man, like in my underwear, painting with my easel somewhere in Spain. That's my dream, I guess, just like a traditional artist.
I mean, what's stopping you from doing that right now?
Well, that's exactly what I'm gonna do right now after this
Painting in your underwear.
Yeah, so I'm really going to pursue the traditional art side of things, but obviously, alongside growing Lucan.
Yeah. Is there like a big vision of something you want to accomplish through your paintings or whatnot? Like, do you want people to look at them and feel a certain way? Do you have something in your mind that's an idea that you want to get out into the world, or is it more of a relaxation, enjoyable experience type of thing?
Yeah, for me, it's absolutely a relaxation thing. I think once you start making something your job, you kind of blur that line a little bit. So that's why I love oil painting so much at the moment, because Lucan is my job and oil painting is my release, from stress. So, yeah.
I understand that. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to share, or pieces of wisdom that you wish you had along the way that you want to hand over?
Yeah, shit. For sure. Like maybe when I was, like, for your younger listeners, something that's very profound for me now is like, what is your why? Like, what is your reason for doing something? And I mean, that plays a huge role. For example, if you want to learn Houdini, I'm just like spitballing it, but if you want to learn Houdini, and you don't have a very well-defined, clear why you're doing it, the first Friday night when all your mates phone you and say, hey, let's go for drinks, what's going to stop you and say, no, listen, I'm going to actually like buckle down and learn Houdini? Because it's such a huge time investment and energy. And if you half-ass it, you're just like wasting time. So if you've got a strong why and a strong reason, then that's like half the battle won, I think. Yeah. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing that I also struggled with a lot was that's fear of failure. So now for me, it's just like, fail fast. Fail as fast as you can, iterate as much as you can. And then, once you kind of know exactly what you want, then you start developing it.
How do you fail fast?
You just like don't become precious about your initial ideas. If, for example, if you are working for like a supervisor or something, if you've got 10 days to do something, instead of spending 8 days crafting this perfect thing before you pitch it to your supervisor, maybe spend 3 days coming up with like 20 really shitty ideas, but maybe that one is great that the supervisor loves, and then you start developing what you need to develop.
Yeah, there's almost like this perfectionism mindset, as I feel, especially in artists, where it's like you take the first thing and you just see it to the nth degree,
Yeah.
and it turns out to not even be the best thing. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
from my experience in the business world, yeah, like you have to fail fast and often, because like when your money is on the line and you invest it all in one thing and it doesn't turn out, like what are you gonna do? So totally.
Yeah,
I
all
also
eggs
like
in one basket.
I also like what you said about figuring out the why. And I get this a lot in animation specifically. People will say like, I'm going to pursue animation on the side as a hobby, and then maybe in 10 years, I'll be able to enter the industry. And it's like, well, if you don't go all in, you're not going to really get anywhere very fast or at all. You have to take that risk and figure out what that why is for you and go for it. So yeah, totally get those things. Cool. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I mean, yeah, I just want to thank you for your time. It's been lovely chatting.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Wian. It's been great to hear about your journey in Lucan and Isaura, and I can't wait to see when it comes out. Hopefully soon. You'll have to get that.
Me neither. I'm also pumped. Can't wait to just start making it.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And if you're listening and you want to see the trailer for Isaura or some of the concept work and the rest of what Wian's talked about, you can check out Lucan's website or their Instagram, and I'll include both those links in the description of this chat. Thank you so much for listening. That's all for now. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Will Farmer and the graphics by Daniel Abensauer. I encourage you to look them up if you enjoyed their work.